Welcome to the Professional Evil Perspective podcast. This is season 3, episode 4. I actually paid attention this time. I'm Kevin Johnson.
And I'm Nathan Sweeney. I'm sitting here thinking, Kevin, dang it. We're recording this in advance, and now we can't use it out of order. We can't say, "Ooh, we need one for this episode instead of that," because he's put the number.
No. We can totally put them in out of order, because how many people are really listening to them anyways?
Yeah. Mom, pretend that Kevin didn't say that number. Whatever it says on your podcast app, that's what
it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, today we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. The open letter to OWASP. And for the people who don't know, and we'll link to it in the show notes. About 2 weeks ago, I think. About 2 weeks ago, they put out. There were some private messages back and forth about people, hey, can we support this? I am, full disclosure, I am an OWASP project lead. I'm one of the leads of the Samurai Project. I was a chapter lead. I stepped down from that because I didn't have time. I am a lifetime member of OWASP. And as one of the owners of Secure Ideas, we pay for every one of our employees to have membership in OWASP. I am also the vice chair of the project's committee. And I'm saying all that not to brag about what I am, but to be clear about why this letter is so important to me, right? I have been a vocal criticizer of OWASP and many parts of OWASP. I'm also a massive supporter of OWASP. I think that the idea behind OWASP is great. And so this letter was created. I believe Mark Curfey is who drafted the original version. It has been signed by lots of project leads and other people. And basically the OWASP, it says that OWASP needs to evolve. And it then talks about how this letter is entirely focused on projects. And it talks about the problems, that there are problems and that projects have to operate independently and what have you. And then it says there's 5 key areas, and I'm just going to summarize them, right? Is that 1, the foundation, OWASP Foundation, should maintain a community plan, right? That talks about key initiatives, things like that. That the governance structure needs to better reflect the community as a whole. That funding of projects should be improved, and that in the letter it says that they'd like that to be in the region of $5 to $10 million per year just for projects. That is not the OWASP budget. That is the money that's available to give to projects. That number 4, the foundation should provide infrastructure and services so that the projects can focus on projecting and use those infrastructure. And that finally, the foundation should actively manage the project portfolio. And here's one of the few places they mentioned local chapters, to ensure that the community is always reflected in the best possible light and we're able to attract the best talent, right? That's what it says. That's the letter. So I've got tons of opinions, tons of statements. I will point out, spoiler alert, I did not sign the letter.
Well, and let me add to that. There are a lot of people that had, and we'll post the link in the notes so you can scroll through and lead. But there's a lot of project leads and core team members and founders, and there's a bunch of names, a lot of names. Anybody that's familiar with OWASP you'll recognize those names. So yes, this is not a one guy wrote a letter and posted it somewhere. This is there's a lot of traction here with a lot of well-known folks in the OWASP community.
And a number of people that just happen to be members of OWASP.
Yeah. So the first thing that I saw on this, my first read through was, they started at the very beginning saying, I guess maybe they didn't just come out and said it, but there's kind of an assumption that OWASP is supposed to be project based. They say without active world-class projects, OWASP doesn't have a unique selling point, and projects need constant guidance, mentoring, and investment for them all to grow and keep the brand where it should be. I don't know is that universally true? Is it accepted that the primary goal and mission of OWASP is to create these projects? What do you think?
I don't know that anything is universally true.
Okay.
I'm being a jerk. I'm
Maybe
making a joke.
is it generally accepted? Because that's not the vision of what I had that OWASP is.
Well, and I think that that is one of the core problems. So I made the comment earlier today in a meeting that I won't say was the project committee meeting, but probably was, that OWASP is a failure. And I believe that's an exaggeration. But I believe that the fact that you can say, is projects actually the universal, like the core focus, is part of the failure issue here. And the reason I say that is the answer from the original time, because I was around when OWASP was started, as I believe were you, right? OWASP was started as a project organization. It was built on the idea of supporting open source projects to improve application security. Right.
Okay.
The chapters came later. Now,
well, yeah,
I'm not
I knew
saying,
chapters were later.
right, and I'm not saying that that was the right thing, but
Yeah.
yes, the core of OWASP was the projects. The
Okay.
core of what it was supposed to be doing was supporting the projects.
Well,
Now,
let me create a distinction, I guess, and
okay,
maybe I don't know if this is a fair distinction, but in my head, there are two types of OWASP projects. There are products that are being developed to be used to make security things happen, right? It could be offensive, defensive, whatever. But there are products that are being made, and then there are informational guidance supplement, like the top 10, the application verification standard, the
yeah,
the
documentation projects.
documentation projects. And so in my head, and this is probably just me not remembering well, I thought that when OWASP started, it was more focused on those documentation, informational, supplemental guidance type things, and less on the here's an open source product that we want to promote or support.
I think that the reason you feel that way, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying I think the reason you feel that way and you remember it that way is that the documentation. There are two types of projects. There's tool projects and there's documentation projects.
Tools
And
a good word. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
Product.
and I didn't come up with that. That's actually how OWASP describes them. You're either
Okay.
a tool project or a documentation project. And the documentation projects have always been the key flagships people talk about, specifically the OWASP application security top 10, right? Which we all talk about as the top 10, but there's 50 top 10s or
Now
something
there is,
now.
yeah.
The documentation projects were always the ones that were talked about, but Web Scarab was one of the major. I know. And we talk about Zap now. As a matter of fact, there was a podcast earlier today, so you know what day we were. There was a webinar earlier today, so you know what day we're recording on tactical Zap, using Zap. Web Scarab was one of the flagship projects. There were other tool, mainly libraries. ESAPI was another big one that has kind of died, right? The Enterprise Security API to try to do filtering and encoding and stuff like that.
I remember
that. If I remember correctly, you are right that it seemed like documentation was the bigger one, but the reality was that there were more tool projects than documentation projects at the start.
Okay.
Right. I don't know that that's true, but my memory is the opposite of yours, that it was more tools than documentation. The Samurai became a project early on within OWASP, right, due to Justin. Justin submitted it. As a matter of fact, Justin had told me he was going to, and I had missed it. And so when it got accepted as an OWASP project, I found out because Google alerted me that a new page existed. Right. Awesome. And Justin, in talking to Justin, he had told me, he had made it clear, everything else like that. But it was just like, when did that happen? Yeah. Right. But yeah, and OWASP started as tools and documentation and stuff like that, and then started the chapters. And and then that's gone from there. And a lot of people talk about, and you can see this in the Slack channels that OWASP runs. You can see it in the newsletter, the mailing lists. I mean, not newsletters, that people are talking about. There's been a lot of talk about OWASP is changing. OWASP is evolving. OWASP is doing stuff. For example, we moved a few years ago. We moved all of the projects over to new repos, new website, all this kind of stuff. And we found in that process that there were a lot of projects of various types and chapters that, but I was focused on the projects because I was the committee, that they were just dead.
Yeah.
Nobody was responding. Nobody was maintaining them. Nobody was doing that. And at that time, again, public information, OWASP struggled with what to do there because, there were lots of processes to onboard a project, but there weren't very many standards or processes, if any, to say,
how to get rid of it.
Now this project doesn't exist anymore or whatever.
Yeah.
And what do you do? And so you had a lot of problems with that as we were moving to the new site.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's a constant thing for open source in general, right? Somebody's got an idea, they build a project, they put it out there, and then it never gets maintained, or after a year they graduate and move on.
Yeah. Or like you had an idea, you were excited about it, and then you got busy. Or you got, there are a number of projects I've started over the years. Tweety, Laudanum.
That Laudanum's the one that I always comes to mind because that was so useful 10, 15 years ago. I used it all the time. Yeah. And now I don't remember the last time. I mean, the functionality has been rolled into other stuff.
Exactly. We stopped maintaining it. Tim Medine continued to maintain it a little bit for a while. Yeah. But the functionality it offered just wasn't necessary anymore.
Yeah.
And didn't have time. So, okay, go on.
Well, I was going to say, let's maybe break down these 5 main requests and talk through them. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay. So the first one there, publish and maintain. And by maintain, to me, that means fund. But I know there's more to it, but ultimately funding is what makes it happen. A community plan that includes prioritize key project initiatives. To me, that sounds like, all right, decide what's most important. And then, suitable funding plan to support them, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
That seems reasonable to me. If you're going to have an organization with lots of projects, you can't support them all completely at the same level. So, hey, let's set some priorities and say, these are the most important things. I kind of felt like that already happened. Is that not a thing already?
No, it's not. OWASP is very hands-off with the projects.
Aren't there different status levels of projects?
There are, but that is not actually something, one, right off the bat, many projects don't know what status level they're in. There was a public conversation just recently about Andrew Vanderstock, the executive director. He's also the project lead of the main OWASP Top 10. He put out a call saying, hey, we need to really think about what is a top 10, what should be. Like, for example, there is literally a top 10 that has a disclaimer on it that says, these are my ideas. And it was some person sat down and went, yep, these are the 10 things most important for this thing. And here's the funny part. You talk about, levels, right? Yeah. There's incubator, lab. The project committee added production. I want to say last year. And then flagship.
Okay. And, see, in my head, flagship was, these are the top things. These are the things we're focusing on. These are the big names.
Yeah. See, it's not. It is. Those are the ones that have reached a certain level. And I don't remember the criteria off the top of my head, so I'm probably going to mess this up. But those are the ones that OWASP is going to promote and fund at some level.
At some level.
Right.
Okay.
And then flagship makes sense, right? That's why production level came in, was because lab says these are projects that aren't ready for production use.
Right.
The only next step was flagship.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So do you have problems with the first one? Does that make sense to you?
No. So my issue with this one is the same as my issue with all of them. I have one overarching issue, right? Where's money come from?
We'll get to that. Let's save that for the third one.
Right? And
the idea in general, assuming that it's possible to fund it, and assuming the idea of this one seems reasonable to me.
I think that if we drop the suitable funding plan, because I'll point out that I don't believe that most projects actually need funding, but that's a different conversation.
Suitable could be $1.
Well,
somebody has to decide.
you do run into some issues with the fact that they're a nonprofit and how they
Yeah.
do that money.
How they
So
fund it.
you have to
Sure.
be careful with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think saying, hey, here's a plan for what we want to focus on for the year, that absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
Totally.
So the second one what was it basically? The foundation's government structure should better reflect the needs of the entire security community. Here's what I heard when I read this.
Okay.
OWASP,
What you imagined when you read it.
No, this is what I heard this saying. This is how I interpreted this.
Got it.
OWASP needs to be more like ISC squared is heading.
Oh God, I hope not.
Well, I mean, that's ISC squared's argument is, look, right now we're a bunch of white Americans that are a very small portion of the InfoSec community, and we're trying to spread out, and we're trying to reach Latin America, Southeast Asia, Europe. We're trying to do more and more in those areas. That is the lion's share of the InfoSec community, and they aren't represented. But to do that, we're going to piss off everybody else that is the backbone of the organization now. And so to me, I'm reading this and I'm like, hey, that sounds great on paper, but do you really realize what you're asking for?
See, I don't think that's what this is at all.
Okay.
And to me, this is actually one of the main problems OWASP has. Do you realize that OWASP runs on a budget of, I want to say it was like $1.6 million a year?
Yeah.
I looked it up. $2 million a year.
2021, there was 1.4 million income, 1.5 million expenses.
Yep. So OWASP currently has a membership of around, how many people do you think are paid members of OWASP?
I have no idea.
They get 30,000 people visiting the website a day, using the tools. OWASP is the standard PCI holds applications to. It is a worldwide organization that's been around for 2 decades.
Yeah.
What do you think paid membership is? Paid membership is $50 a year.
Yeah.
$50.
Let's go with 100,000.
Nice. That'd be awesome. I think the number is somewhere between 3 and 4.
3 and 4,000?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So maybe chasing the ISC squared model is not a bad idea.
So here's the biggest issue we have, and I don't know that my 3,000 to 4,000 number is right. Yeah. I do know that there is less than 10,000 members, and I believe there's less than 5,000 paid members. Members. I think, and this is actually the core issue I have with all of this, I think it's addressing the wrong problem. I believe what we have here is that Mark Curphey ran on a platform of, we need to make OWASP better. We need to get more money into OWASP, which I don't have a problem with any of those two statements. Those two, done. Yes. Yeah. Make it better. Get more money into it. Awesome. I like that. And then instead of actually doing something as a board member, he drafted an open letter to get other people to bully the board members into going his route. Now that is my cynical, I'm a jerk.
It's a political move. He's playing politics.
Yep, totally get it. Here's my issue with the whole thing. And this is a question that I have asked publicly and privately repeatedly for years. I think the problem that OWASP needs to figure out is why it doesn't have the paid membership that it should. Why is it that Microsoft and other corporate sponsors will hand millions of dollars to other foundations, other efforts, other things, and not give that to OWASP? And I'm not calling out Microsoft. I'm just saying, because I know that Microsoft is a corporate member of OWASP, right? But the question that OWASP needs to answer is, why aren't people giving them the money? Because it's not, hey, where should we spend this money? We don't have the money to spend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So let me come back to that. I looked up in the budget in 2021, because they haven't published 2022's budget yet. We're only in 2023 now. There was $150,000 brought in from individual memberships, which at $50 a pop comes out to exactly $3,000. And then there was $200,000 brought in from corporate memberships, which is extremely low.
How much was it from corporate
200,000 for corporate membership. Like that could have been all Microsoft, right? Like that's
no,
Microsoft.
It's not, because Secure Ideas is a corporate member and we didn't pay them $200,000.
But I'm just saying, like that's to your point, that's such a small amount. To me,
I'm sorry.
Well, to me, again, I hate making the comparison to IC squared, but I think there's a valid change or issue there. OWASP, I looked up the staff numbers for OWASP. They're with that 1.5 million dollar budget, staff expenses was like $700,000.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the prices and whatnot, costs, whatever, it's basically 7, 8, maybe 9 staff members. I don't know exactly how many
they do not have a large paid staff.
Yeah. When you compare that to ISC squared, that has what, 200 to 400 staff members.
I don't know that ISC squared is a good comparison, and here's why.
No. Let me explain why. Why I think that is an example of a large organization that is successful at that type of marketing and promotion and ultimately sales. Because when you're trying to get,
Apache is a better model.
Okay,
the
why is
Apache Foundation or the Mozilla Foundation?
Okay, why is that?
Because they are open source projects that are running foundations, whereas ISC squared is a certification arm that sells training and curriculum, and the ISC squared is a for-profit model.
Mm-hmm. No, ISC squared is nonprofit. They
have the legal designation of nonprofit. Yes, that is valid.
They are not a charity, but that's where I was going, because I've seen this with other nonprofit associations. Is if you treat it like a small association with a couple of staff members, you'll never bring the money in. You've got to treat it like a corporation with marketing departments, and you know what I mean? Like, you've got to have salespeople. You've got to have member benefit peoples that are contacting members and getting them on board. You've got to have people reaching out to those corporate sponsors. And you get into you got to have money to make money type situation, right? But right. I guess what I'm saying is all of the stuff they're talking about, I don't think it happens. How much do you think
revenue-wise Mozilla made in 2020?
I don't know. Mozilla's budget's been going down every year for a while. It's still a lot, but most of it comes from Google, I think.
Yeah. So what do you think their revenue was?
I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Guess.
3 million.
Yeah. 441 million.
Okay. That's a little bit more. They have a product. They have a product that they sell to a large corporate. I'm not even going to call them a sponsor. Google's a vendor, right?
Yes.
Google buys that real estate from them. And so they have value, but that's why I don't feel like it's as much of a Mozilla is not a membership organization. That's where I think the big issue is. OWASP is a membership organization, but they're treating it like a small local community membership organization rather than a corporate association.
So I see where you're taking it to ISC squared. I'm not sure I've bought into the idea that you're doing. I know they're not the same. I know you're not saying they're the same. I see the analogy you're using.
My point is, so moving into point 3, they want more funding, basically. Breaking down all of the projects should be funded to certain levels and blah blah blah, sustain and all. And they're asking for $5 to $10 million. For me to get to that $5 to $10 million level, that's not going to happen the way they're running it. And so
that's absolutely true.
And they know that. But what I'm saying is, they're talking about a substantial change to the structure of the association. Not just we need to document stuff and we need to have a different focus and we need different leadership. They're talking about a much larger, massive organization that is not going to be as responsive to folks on social media as they are now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. I just don't see how they get there.
Well, and that's the problem I have with the whole thing, because out of the 5 points, I believe 4 of them are driven by money.
Yeah. Yeah. Because number 4 is vague. We want more infrastructures and services. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Give us more money. We'll provide you more stuff. Like that's reasonable.
Yep.
Number 5 is the big one. They want to actively manage the project portfolio and local chapters. Well, what does active management mean?
Cost.
More people, more costs, right? And that's where I'm going. Again, it comes back to the ISC squared thing of they have lots of people that manage all of those little pieces and components to be able to provide those member benefits.
See, and this is why I think that this letter is addressing the wrong problem. I don't think there's anything inherently bad about any of these ideas. hey, we want to actively do things. We want to provide better services to projects. Like, let's be very clear. Most projects, when we created the production level for projects,
What are you drinking there, Kevin?
A bubbly.
A bubbly. Okay.
Yeah. We had to actively reach out to projects to let them know that they could submit to be promoted.
Did they care?
Most projects didn't know they could be promoted. Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as what I started to say about that OWASP top 10. And this is public list that was talking about this. That OWASP top 10, that was this guy's idea, his opinion, their words, the disclaimer on the project was in the incubator level for OWASP. But according to the webpage, was a flagship project. Okay. Right? And it's
who maintains the website? Is that the project?
The project lead maintains the website.
He's like, yeah,
but
everybody's
of course we're flagship.
You're flagship. Here's the thing. Flagship. Everybody's flagship.
Yeah, it's the Oprah of production levels. But in my opinion, and I don't know this, but I don't believe that the project lead lied. No, I don't think the project lead said, "Oh, I'm going to boost my ego" or something like this. I guarantee you, the project lead didn't understand what to put there.
Yep, had no clue.
Was building out the template that OWASP gave. The template has flagship in by the default.
That's what I was going to say. It was the default, right?
Right? It happens, right? So I'm flagship. Is this how I get promoted? Done. Right?
That's hilarious.
I think, and this is the thing I've said before. Like, what do you get by being a member? Right? Can you list the benefits of being a member?
I got a lot of harassment from whoever's in charge of the chapters when we couldn't get OWASP Tulsa off the ground.
Okay, so you got harassment. Yeah. What's the benefit you get from being when you pay the $50? Right?
I actually, when you said that about paying for all employees, I was like, you know what? I'm not sure I ever renewed mine last time. I need to look into that.
It should be automatic. Maybe,
I don't remember, but yeah.
No. But what do you think the membership benefits are?
I mean, is there a discount for going to conferences?
Nope. There might be. You might be able to get a discount. Maybe.
I bet there's an icon I can put on
you get a free OWASP.org email address because you need another email address.
And Slack. You get access to Slack.
Nope. You don't have to be a paid member to have access to Slack.
Oh, darn it. Yeah. Is there an icon that I can put on my social media account?
Not that I've seen, but you get the right to vote in the election.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Those two things.
For board members? Is that what we're electing? Gotcha.
Yep. You can elect board members. Let's be very clear. I didn't vote in the last election. I missed it. I don't know how I missed it. I saw that it was coming. So, I got my ballot thing and never filled it in.
Hold on. Times 50. Okay, so.
And by the way, the reason it's not 3,000 members exactly are people like myself and Jason Gillum, who are lifetime members.
Yeah.
So
you're not bringing in money,
right? So we're a lifetime member. We paid, I think it was $500, right? And that's why that $50 math doesn't work.
Sure. What percentage of those? What percentage of all the members do you think vote?
It's a very small number.
I mean, let's say
I actually think the U.S. elections get a higher percentage of voters than the OWASP elections.
You think 20% is too low?
Oh God, yeah. I would bet you it's less than 10% of the membership.
Okay,
that's a guess. That's totally a guess.
Let's say, including lifetime members, let's say there's 4,000 members, right? Is that fair? And let's say 10% of that is 400. So $50 for 400 members is only 20 grand. So if you have a business that has 400 employees, for 20 grand, if you paid for all of them and had them all vote, you could
take complete control of the board.
20 grand, you could buy OWASP.
Yeah.
So if Simon and whoever else is behind the letter, if they really want to make an impact, all they've got to do is find a company willing to fund 20 grand, and they can replace the entire board with whoever they want.
Okay, somebody add these numbers up. Oh, no, I don't have to. There's a total field. There's a total field. I was wrong. It's not 10%. Okay. 1,047 people. There were 1,047 votes.
Okay.
In the board election.
Okay, so times 50.
That's actually pretty good.
That's not bad. So you need 50 grand. You got to front 50 grand, and you need 1,000 people that are willing to vote for whoever you say to vote for.
I don't think you need that many.
No, I'm worst case scenario. It could be less, but if you're going to front 40 grand and take a chance, you might as well do 50 and guarantee you win.
See, I actually think it's less than that.
Why's that?
Because here's the thing. The lowest number of votes somebody got was 201.
Okay. What's the highest?
The highest number of votes was 664. So if we got 500 seats, we could swing the election.
Yeah. I mean, you want to assume that somebody sees what's going on and convinces the rest of the community to vote against whoever you're promoting.
You would hope.
So worst case, you need 665, which comes out to 33,000.
Yep.
We're still in that for $30,000 to $50,000.
We can take over OWASP.
You can buy OWASP
for a year.
How long?
How long?
How long are board members? Yeah.
I thought it was a year.
This is crazy.
We're planning the Manchurian Candidate. We're gonna. What is it?
Well,
it's not a year. It's not a year. You have to be a member for at least 12 months. And why does it not say how long they're elected for? Why do I not see that on this website? That's the other problem OWASP has, is communicating things effectively.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I noticed that I was quoting the 2021 budget earlier because the 2022 budget all says TBA.
Yeah. But I think that's due to the nonprofit status. There's a period of time they have. Because it's not their budget.
Well, I would agree with you.
I
would agree with you, except for there are lots of other documentation under that same section that just aren't filled out at all. Like it's not. I mean, not just about 2022. I mean, they're like that's a section that clearly people fill in when they have time. Anyway, I don't. I think we've probably digressed enough.
Totally. So I mean, it boils down to one thing. I personally think they serve a 2-year term, by the way.
Yeah.
7 members on the board. Okay. They serve for 2 years.
But 2 years, you can make a lot of changes in 2 years.
So here's what you would have to do. That means that 3 or 4 seats are up every election.
Okay.
So you would have to pick the 4-seat election, and you'd have to vote those.
But if you're willing to put in 40 grand a year, boom, you got it.
Yeah. Right. Here's what I think, and this is something I've asked forever, and nobody's been able to give me a good answer. I want people to explain to me why people who actively use OWASP stuff, and by that I mean, if you're a PCI person and you're using the OWASP Top 10 to train people, if you're running Zap, or if you're running Samurai, or if you're downloading Cyclone DX or whatever, right. My question for you is this: why have you not paid for membership?
Yeah.
Because I know that for the majority of the people that fit the first quality aren't paying for membership, because I know that things like the OWASP Top 10 are downloaded tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
Why is PCI DSS not donating $1 million a year, since they use the OWASP as one? And I don't know that they're not, but based on the budget, I don't think they are.
I'm sure they're not.
Right?
I mean, it's.
I'm just picking on the one, right?
Yeah, yeah. To me, that's a simple economic thing. There's not enough value there. Like you give me the top 10 and you say, okay, hey, you've got to pay to use this now. Okay, great. I'll create that myself.
No. I'm not saying they have to pay to use it. I'm saying, why aren't you helping support it?
Why would you? It's free.
Why do you pay for membership?
Do what?
Why do you pay for membership?
I don't. You did.
But why, right? Because when we came up with the idea of paying for membership, you were one of the people that agreed with the idea of paying for it.
Yeah, because as a InfoSec organization, we want to influence the community for good, and we think that OWASP provides value to the organization.
Right.
I will
and that's
say
what I'm saying is
we are not
why?
A traditional corporation, right? Like from an economic capitalist perspective, there's no reason to do that. There's no benefit that you get out of it. And that's
I agree with that statement, and I think that's the core problem, is that OWASP has not done a good job of explaining why people should pay,
or they don't have a reason to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not. It's either they're not explaining it or they don't have it. That's really what
they have a reason. The reason is support what we're doing. That is their reasoning.
Okay, they don't have a good reason.
Yes, I knew that was coming. I knew that. But right, like
yeah.
Their argument is, and I agree with this argument, they don't want to be pay to play.
Yeah.
They want every bit of things they do to be public and free and available, which means somebody has to help support that.
Yeah, it's the open source conundrum. That's
Yeah.
absolutely what it is.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't
I
think
think
we're gonna fix
we've
it.
definitely run down this one a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there is a solution to this. I think this is one of those things that I look at a letter like that and say, well, it's worth a shot. Maybe it'll have some impact. Who knows where it'll go in the future? But I don't know. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin. Until next time.
Yes.